The African continent is endowed with enormous renewable energy potentials. The region has about 1.1 gigawatts of hydroelectric potential and 9,000 megawatts of geothermal potential. These alongside other key energy sources. However, the region is yet to make significant use of these resources to drive the necessary growth, with many countries still dependent on fossil fuels. At a time when climate change and economic challenges are weighing heavily on governments, my guests will explore how Africa can take advantage of a $2 trillion economy in the renewable energy sector to trigger maximum economic progress. Stay with us. This is Indepth. My guest is an esteemed business and community leader who is an advocate for youth empowerment and civic engagement, especially in the oil and gas sector. He is a founder, partner member, and board chair of several oil and gas, energy and mining companies in Africa, with particular focus on technology. With over 27 years of experience in the extractive and energy sectors, the former senior partner of UBA Cameroon and board chair of the ENIO Audit Committee, has written extensively on oil and gas, mining and energy sectors in Africa, as well as the opportunities they offer. As senior advisor and consultant on renewable energy and extractives, he has also designed and implemented functional policies and frameworks for governments in sub-Saharan Africa. He holds a PhD on renewable energy and is amongst the top 50 African leaders in the energy sector. He is the chairman of the UK Cameroon Chamber of Commerce. Join me to welcome Dr. Elias Pungong to the program. Doctor, it's a very big pleasure to have you once again. We are starting the year with you. Welcome.
Thank you. It's not been easy to organize this interview, but I'm glad to be here.
All right, thank you. Now, we are talking about renewable energy at a time when global attention is on it. And this particular sector has a capital of about $2 trillion US dollars. Just tell us, how huge is this from an economic standpoint?
You know, when they talk about renewable energy, I want to take you back to, the COP summits, COP26, COP27. The whole objective is to limit global warming to less than 1.5 degrees centigrade. Celsius. And to do that, you talked about $2 trillion. No. I mean, I read recent McKinsey studies. McKinsey is a well-renowned consultancy practice and management consultancy practice. They're talking about $240 trillion. Before I came on this interview, I read another study that's talking about $300 trillion. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a movement going on. I'm not trying to argue that it is true or it's not true, but it's an economy that is worth looking at, and it's an economy that is worth exploiting.
All right, now, when you look at the African continent, the continent is seen as the pillar and future for renewable energy. When you look at biomass, hydroelectric potential,
solar,
as well as solar,
geothermal, hydro.
And the minerals. Which of those sources really has the potential to impact the continent positively if the advantages are being harnessed?
All of them. Today, I see people arguing a lot, about transition, what is going to become of Africa, what are we going to do? But my view is simple. We need to take advantage. When they talk about transition, all of the transition is in Africa. We have everything. We have geothermal, you've listed them, we have hydro, we have solar, we have wind, we have everything in Africa to take advantage. On top of that, we have what you call the transition minerals, lithium, manganese, cobalt, copper. Recent as yesterday, there was a major copper discovery in Zambia. So instead of us looking at that there could be an injustice in the fossil fuel, which is oil and gas, I'd rather us look at what we have that we can take up, that we can take advantage of this 240, 200, 300 trillion dollar economy that is opening before us.
Now, despite these potentials and the economy which surrounds it, we realize that Africa is really yet to tap economically from the 200, 300 trillion US dollar sector. Why is Africa not taking advantage?
You know, you talk, Africa is a country, in a continent, 53, 54 countries. Let's just leave Africa. Let's just talk about Cameroon.
Yes.
Cameroon is a country, you know, we're just going through the African Nations Cup, and at home people say they call Cameroon le continent, because we are actually the continent. So everything you say about Cameroon is applicable to the continent. You know, what we need to do today is Cameroon is a country that is, you know, many people don't know, is 50% of Cameroon is forest. Yeah. So Cameroon is home to 10% of the Congo Basin. That is the lung, after the Amazon, it is the lung of the world. So we are 10% of the second biggest forest basin in the world. That's number one. Number two, Cameroon has, unlike any other African country, we have everything. We have the third biggest potential in hydro. We have solar energy. We have geothermal in the north of Cameroon. We have everything when it comes to renewable energy. We have wind energy as well. So in terms of renewables, Cameroon is king. So for me today, Cameroon is looking for financing. There's green financing everywhere. Cameroon is looking to develop. For me today, if you look at what Cameroon needs to do today to develop going forward into the future, is to tap into this $300 trillion economy. You know, Cameroon has some oil and gas resources. It is nothing. It is less than 10% compared to the renewable energy potential. If I were, you know, I'm not, but if I was a government official, I would focus on renewable energy, because that's what will take Cameroon into the next phase of its development.
But why are countries like Cameroon not tapping exactly from this potential? Is it an issue of structural problems or transition problems or funding?
It's ignorance. It's not funding, for sure, because funding, it is free funding. I mean, I really consider it as free funding, because you just have to focus on it, have a plan. Today you have what you call the carbon credit market. So the carbon credit market, you know, just to simplify it, it's a market where they say you have carbon credits. It means that if you have the renewable resources I've talked about, the 50% of our territory made up of forest and 10% of the Congo Basin, that is a credit. So we can monetize that credit easily to get in financing to develop the rest of the country. So everything is there, is open, but if you ask as a direct response to your question, it is ignorance. You see, you know, let me refer to the Bible. The Bible says that people perish for the lack of knowledge. If you don't have knowledge, you don't know anything. You don't know what is available to you. If I were the Cameroon government today, I would focus on our biggest strength. Our biggest strength is renewable energy.
All right, now let's look at the African Development Bank. In a statement last year, it says that renewable energy constitutes the best method and means to realize the sustainable development goals. I'm sure you probably agree with that.
I do agree. I have many of my friends who advocate for a just transition. I have a friend of mine, NJ Ayuk, who has written extensively on a just transition. Yes, there should be a just transition. It is absolutely necessary. But to have a just transition, you must have a plan. That I am doing a transition. That, first of all, we need to recognize that it's a transition, because many countries don't recognize that they are in the transition. We have to say, we are in this transition, that's what we have. We are moving forward to a destination. Transition means that you are moving transiting to somewhere else. But today, when my friend Angel says transition, yes, it is a transition, but where are you going to? The first thing is that we don't realize we're in this transition. Secondly, we don't know what we have. Third, we don't know where we're going to. So we need to have a plan. I advocate for a transition. I advocate for renewable energy, but I also advocate that we should know what is it that we have as a potential and what is it that Africa as a continent and Cameroon in particular, what is it that we can bring along in this transition. And I can tell you, Cameroon is one of the countries in Africa that has everything and that we can really contribute to this transition, though the transition has to be just.
All right, now, we'll talk about a just transition. Where do you strike the balance between use of fossil fuels and then embracing renewable energy?
That's where you need a plan. Today in Cameroon, we have several oil and gas. Cameroon has a lot of revenue from oil and gas. Yes, it's good. It is good to have it, but you have to know that in 5 years, that's, it's all going to go away. Oil and gas is what you call, I always say, it is a buyer's market. The guy who buys it determines the price. In many countries, even including, the other day I was reading in Ethiopia soon they're going to ban fossil fuel engines in 2030 or 2035. So the guy who buys tells you that he doesn't need it. He's transiting into, electric cars, and in many countries. So what is going to happen is that the price is going to fall. So we need to take account of that. So when we talk about just transition, let us define what we mean by just transition. From my perspective, what we mean by just transition is that we should assess what we have, what we bring on the table, what is it that we have in terms of the fossil fuel, how are we going to phase that out, and how are we going to embrace the undoubted renewable energy potential that we already have.
Now, talking about transition, some experts have raised two key points. One, training of the workforce to embrace the new developments that come with renewable energy, and also a proper funding program. How crucial are these two factors to ensuring that the transition is good?
Both of them are very crucial, but you need a plan. Today we have no plan. Somebody, it is always said that, not planning is planning to fail. So that is where we are. We need to have a plan. Today, many people talk about just transition. What is the plan? I agree. We must, like in Namibia and other countries that have oil and gas resources, Gabon, even Cameroon, we have to continue to explore our oil and develop our oil resources. But in as much as we do that, you must plan into the future. If you ask me what is Cameroon going to be in 2050, Cameroon is going to be a renewable energy country. How do we get there? That's the question. So you cannot just talk about just transition without having a plan to realize the just transition that you're advocating.
Okay. Now, where does training come in? Because the African Union reveals that the job market in the renewable energy sector will rise up to about 4 or 5 million by the year 2030. So now, how important is training for some countries like Cameroon that are still lagging behind?
Again, you need a plan. There are many facets to this discussion. There are many facets to this argument. We need a plan. Today, we don't have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going to. A plan entails, where are you? Today we have a lot of, to be fair to Cameroon, we are already exploring a lot of our renewable energy resources. You've seen the new dams, Nashtigal, they're talking about Kikut, and many other smaller dams that are coming on stream. So we are already doing that, but we need to sit down and say, what is our transition plan? We need a transition plan. And within the aforementioned transition plan, you will have training, you will have capacity development, you will have financing, you have all the different elements. But we need to sit down and have a plan.
All right, let's talk a little bit about oil. Trends in the oil sector are showing a very volatile market. and the case for zero carbon continues to gather steam. How is that playing in Cameroon at this point in time?
Playing in Cameroon at this point in time is what I've said before. Yeah. Transition. The Cameroon, the national oil company must realize that the era of oil and gas is over. They can promote oil and gas, but they must embrace the new dispensation, which is around renewable energy. So many companies like BP, British Petroleum, and I was listening watching the TV. The Norwegian oil company, I think is Equinor. What they do is they invest in oil and gas, but at the same time, they invest in renewables. So we must embrace. So what I want to see is the SNH has to start looking at investing in renewable energy if they want to survive in the long term. Okay,
Cameroon has just gone through another fuel price increase. From an economic standpoint, how would that affect the economy going forward?
This has been, I mean, you're a guy of the media, Peter. You know that there's been a lot of discussion. I mean, I watch social media a little bit, and everybody's talking about the fuel increase. Because the fuel increase is actually significant to our people. The fuel increase is actually significant to the government, to the economy of the country. It's something that everybody is actually focused on. What you did not say is that the head of state has signed a decree to liberalize, an instruction to liberalize the sector.
Exactly.
You're going to come to that. I'm going to come to that. To liberalize the sector is a good thing because it opens the market. Everything, I'm an advocate for the open market, for the free market. Yeah. Free market means that you can buy and sell as you want with no duties, with no tariffs. It's a good thing. So for me, that is the form. The form is, it's a good thing to liberalize the market. Everybody can come into the market. I can come into the market. You, Peter, you can come into the market. You get your licenses. You can import oil product. But that doesn't address the substance. There are three issues to do with the substance. And that has been debated on a lot of channels, TV channels in Cameroon, including Dash TV that I'm talking today. In terms of the substance, I want to highlight three things. The first thing is the government, it's good for the government to liberalize. But what does liberalization mean? Liberalization means that you can import products as you want, But we have a situation in Cameroon today whereby what the government has effectively done is it is transferred its responsibility to the private sector. You have a product that you import from Venezuela, from Russia, Venezuela, Brazil, and you pay in what currency? The dollars.
Dollars.
And when you sell to fuel my car or your car, you pay for that product in what? In CFA francs.
CFA francs.
So how do you convert that CFA francs to dollars? And that's the real problem. We have an exchange rate and a trading problem. So that continues to degrade. That continues to degrade our trade balances with foreign currency. That's one of the first issue to do with the substance. So that is not the solution. The second thing is, many people have talked about it. I don't want to go on and on. Is refinery. Yeah. We must refine our own oil. We must refine oil in Cameroon. Refinery means adding value to your product, adding value to your primary product. So you get oil from the ground, you refine it, you add value, and you sell it to the people who use it. Today what we have is that we have a company like SNH that sells our oil, and then we import refined products. I mean, Sonora is now out of it doesn't function anymore because it got an unfortunate incident.
The incident in 2019.
Incident in May 2019. But it's imperative that we refine our oil. You know, energy security is the main thing that many countries are now looking at. You cannot say you are a sovereign state if you depend on your energy from brokers. I mean, today what is happening is that we depend on our oil products from brokers. People sit in London, in Geneva, telling us that this is what you can consume, this is what you cannot consume. So the problem that we had, where you had forex shortages, is because we did not find enough foreign currency to pay the traders. Then who is the trader? A trader is essentially a middleman. So we must refine our own oil. So the fundamental reform that the head of state has to do is that they have to allow Cameroonian businessmen, the Cameroonian private sector, to build refineries. And it's possible. You know, I'm a guy of the oil and gas sector. You can have a mobile refinery. Well, you know, I saw the containers outside. Yeah. A container outside can be a refinery. You can have modular refineries. So when Cameroonians think of refineries, they think of Sonora, a huge structure. I mean, Sonora is 20 kilometers square. But you can have, today the technology has evolved. You can have a refinery in a container. You can have modular refineries. But let me push it forward. If Cameroon decides to liberalize the refining sector, which Nigeria has done, Liberia has done, Senegal has done, what is going to happen is that there are certain oil fields in Cameroon, I can give you some of the names, but there are certain oil fields in Cameroon like Kombe Sepe that have been considered as marginal. You have entrepreneurs that can bring it into production and at the same time refine the oil that comes out of it. Refinery meaning that you get the oil out and you add, value to it. So we're not going to be like cocoa or coffee where we refine the bean, we get out the beans and we dry them and we sell them to foreign countries. We can add value to them and benefit from the value chain. That is the second aspect. Yeah, the third aspect is this price structure. Many people have been talking about the price structure. I looked at it before I came onto your platform. We have 26 taxes. I did a calculation this morning based on the oil price. The oil price this morning was $78 a barrel. Based on that oil price, the price at the pump has to be 300 francs per liter. What is the price at the pump?
840 now.
840. So where is the difference? 500 francs. Yeah. 26 taxes. You have all kinds of things in there. The government has to carry out a fundamental reform of the price structure. If they're not going to have problems going forward into the future, they must sit down with the experts. There are many experts in Cameroon on the oil and gas, what you call downstream oil and gas. Sit down and review the price structure to make sure that even when the price of oil goes up, we can be able to look at the price structure and make the appropriate changes. But what I'm saying is that today they've liberalized. For me, that is the form, but the government has not looked at the substance. I've given you 3 aspects of the substance, which is refining capacity, foreign exchange degradation, and the price structure. You need to look at those. And if the government can sit down around the table with the private sector, they can find a proper and an amendable solution to some of these issues.
The government believes that it increases the prices because it wants to reduce subsidies. How valid is that?
That is a nonsense argument. I mean, it's nonsense. I've talked about 26 taxes. Look at the price structure. The subsidy is just one element of the price structure. If the government says that we are not going to collect VAT on transportation, I mean, that replaces the subsidy. So, I mean, talking about the subsidy is just a subset of the problem. They need to review the entire price, with the expert, they need to review the entire price structure. But the bigger argument is that, Cameroon government thinks they know everything. The Cameroon government doesn't know everything. Especially when it comes to mining, it comes to oil and gas, they don't know everything. They must engage private sector individuals that understand what is happening in Cameroon and understand what is happening in foreign countries to be able to help them to take the right decisions. Government has a lot of power, but if you use that power in the wrong thing, the result is clear. You have price increases and price increases. And by the way, you have to know that if the government doesn't take some of the advice that we're giving them, the price will go up again, because what we have today, the government has to continue to subsidize petroleum products to the tune of 300 billion and do not have the money. So you better sit down and discuss and make the requisite reforms.
Okay. Now, in the midst of all this, where does the gas sector come in? How important is the gas sector in itself? In the midst of all this happening in the oil sector?
No. The gas sector is very important. You know, Cameroon is a gas country. The Douala Basin is gas. You know, without going too technical, you have gas fields in Matanda, you have the Lokbaba that everybody knows, you have Bomono, and you have Kombesepe. You have several gas fields in the Douala Basin. Gas is considered as the acceptable form of oil. Gas is not as pollutive as oil, and gas is generally acknowledged in the world as a transition fuel. So big banks in Africa and in the West, in America, in the UK, in Europe, they are prepared to continue to invest in gas because gas is a transition fuel. So gas is still very important, and Cameroon has a lot of gas. Let us explore the gas in the next 10 years to power our industries and in the transition before we go into fully transitionary sort of fuels.
Now, Doctor, what is your assessment of the gas strategy in Cameroon? Is it sustainable?
Well, I really don't have any assessment of the gas strategy. I just think there is no strategy. You know, we just live on a day-to-day basis and try to see what is happening. And that goes into my argument that we need to have a proper plan that involves everybody and find solutions to this new dispensation and this new economy that is, you know, that is about to open, or that is opening in front of us. If we don't do that, you know, like Einstein says, you can do the same thing over and over again. Don't expect
the same results.
Different results.
All right, Doctor, let's get now into the mining sector. On December 19 last year, the president signed a decree, and in that decree established a new mining code which replaced the one in 2016. And according to government officials, government says that this new mining code is there to protect the government's interest.
Oh, I did an interview recently, the same question, and I'm going to give you the same answer. I mean, the answer I'm going to give you is going to be slightly provocative, but it's the right answer. What interest? Before I came on this interview, I looked at another country called Namibia. Namibia has a total of 55 operating mines, and Namibia has another 25 that are on course to be developed. So they will come on stream in the next few years. Cameroon doesn't have one operating mine. Cameroon is still struggling to see if we can have an operating mine. The minister of, the interim minister of mines says that we have 3 mines. I will use the French word that he used, en phase de démarrage. So it means that
on course to start.
On course to start, if that's the English translation. It means that it hasn't started, it's about to start. So when you say you protect the interest of the Cameroon government, what interest are you protecting? We have misplaced priorities. Today, the priority of the government is to attract. We need to make Cameroon an attractive mining destination. Many people, whether we like it or not, says Cameroon is a no-go. We cannot come to Cameroon because Cameroon is not attractive. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have, we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have a balanced judiciary system. We have problems with the tax system. We have problems with customs at the port of Douala in particular. We have issues around exchange rates and all that. So we need to make Cameroon attractive. When you make your country attractive, people will come to invest. You know, mining is an industry of investment, big money. I mean, you invest, mining is the only industry where you invest billions of dollars today and get the money in 10 years.
10 years.
So it's a long-term play. So we need to make Cameroon attractive. So instead of having a Cameroon mining code in 2023, we had another mining code in 2016 that has never been implemented. We come in 23 and add more. Cameroon's problem is regulations. You know, civil servants believe that they have the answer to every problem. As the former Prime Minister said, it's not me. The government is a bad businessman. The Cameroon government is a bad businessman. Let us reform our laws to make Cameroon attractive. When you make your country attractive, then we'll have the requisite investments from the main mining sectors in London, in Toronto, and in Perth, in Australia, to put money and develop a mining sector. Laws don't develop mining sectors. You know, I was reading in the internet, somebody says that, que le haut instruction vient construire la mine. All instructions don't construct mines. Let us come together as a people, let us come together as a country, and make sure that our country is attractive. If we are attractive, we take off all the bureaucracy, we take off all the corruption, we take off all the infrastructure problems, people will come to invest, and private capital develops the country. Government cannot develop a country by itself. You need private money, and the government has to focus on that.
Now, one aspect of this particular mining code which has really raised this criticism is the aspect of SONAMIN, a structure which government has created to regulate mining activities in Cameroon. Some British companies, when this law was in Parliament last year, some British companies came out to say that SONAMIN has been given much powers and that the mining code itself flouts the extractive Industry Transparency Initiative guidelines.
My view is that SONAMIN is a wonderful thing. You need to have a national oil company that safeguards the interests of the state. The mining code in Cameroon and every country says that the government can have 10% free carry and up to 25% if they pay for the rest of the 15. That is a very good thing. You know, we welcome SONAMIN, but what we don't want is that SONAMIN should not be the regulator of the sector. And even if SONAMIN has to regulate the sector, let them discuss with the private individuals, with the private sector. The private sector has the expertise, the private sector has the money. So SONAMIN, like the SNH for oil, SONAMIN is a wonderful thing. But they need to talk to the guys who have the money. You know, money is king. They need to talk to the guys who have the money. If you don't talk to the guys who have the money, all instruction doesn't build a mine. What builds a mine is money.
It's money. And
money is within the private sector.
Now, another worry also with the mining code that has been raised is the non-participation of local stakeholders. How counterproductive is that?
No. We have, in the mining sector in Cameroon, the problem with the mining sector in Cameroon is that we have a lot of Cameroon investors. We have a few Cameroon individuals that are very active in the mining sector. I know a few, like the Bokom Group, and some, a few of them that are very much active in the sector. With time and with the encouragement of the government, a lot of Cameroonians would be involved in the mining sector. But there need to be fair rules, there need to be transparency, and there need to be education for them to know that the mining sector is the future of Cameroon, because Cameroon is home to all of the transition metals. Lithium, Cameroon is home to lithium, cobalt, manganese, nickel, copper, aluminium. So everything that is needed for this transition, which we mentioned before, is in Cameroon. So the government has every interest to encourage Cameroonians to get involved in the sector.
All right, let's look at the issue of permits in the mining sector. How problematic is that?
It's a big problem. Today, nobody knows what to do when you apply for a permit. There is no rule, there is no regulation. The mining, so nobody knows if the power is at the presidency, nobody knows if the power is at the Prime Minister's office, nobody knows if the approval is at the ministry level. So the government needs to clarify that. But what I propose is simple. Have a commission. everybody, presidency, prime minister's office, Sonamin, ministry, and every mining application comes there and is adjudicated with, you know.
Private sector.
Yeah, private sector adjudicated, and they get they get a decision within 30 days. We have other issues around. If you are involved with any industry, you need a what you call an environmental certificate. You can get it. The commission holds once every month. They can do it twice a month, and they go through. You bring in your technical and financial capabilities, and they can decide if they approve your permit or not. But what you don't want is an opaque system when somebody sits somewhere and says that they give an approval and there are several levels and nobody actually knows. That brings uncertainty, and that's one of the problems that Cameroon has.
All right. Now, in the midst of all these, the issues surrounding the mining sector, the oil and gas, and with the potentials that renewables can do for Cameroon, what would you suggest that the authorities do at this point in time?
For me, if there's one thing that I want to suggest, is that in all the sectors that we've talked about, we need to make Cameroon attractive. We need to make Cameroon welcoming. We need to make Cameroon simple. We need to sell Cameroon. People need to know that you can come to Cameroon and do business. I was talking to my junior brother. They want to invest money to build a football academy. The American investor says, we are going to Rwanda. I say, why are you going to Rwanda? Cameroon is a football country. They say, no. In Rwanda, it's simple. The tax systems are there. No bureaucracy. Foreign exchange, no problem. We are going to Rwanda. That is the problem that Cameroon has. Even with it, one of the things that a lot of people say is that the diaspora is key to invest in the development of our country. The diaspora, they don't want to come. They will only come if you welcome them, if you make things simple for them, if you cut off the bureaucracy, focus on development and infrastructure, cut off the tax, all the tax, the regulatory, make our laws in our courts to be applicable and have reasonable and fair judges. If you do that, people will come. That's what is happening in Côte d'Ivoire. People talk about Côte d'Ivoire. It is simple. They make their environment attractive, people are coming. Senegal, the same. I mean, maybe not for the politics, but for the development, people perceive Senegal as being attractive, people are going there. Get it from me. People think Cameroon is difficult. No investor wants to come to Cameroon. Why? Because Cameroon is bureaucratic and they believe that Cameroon is corrupt. It's not me that is saying it. Look at the World Bank indices. So government has to focus. Government cannot develop a country. If government could develop a country, they will not increase fuel prices. If government could develop a country. And when they increase the fuel price, they have not eliminated the subsidy. What does that mean? It means that they will increase it again in the future to eliminate the subsidy. So government is not a good businessman. What government has to do today, call people together and see how together we can work on the price structure. We can work on having private refineries in Cameroon. You know, Nigeria was like Cameroon. They thought they could do with state NNPC refineries. Then Dangote came up. The NNPC a lot of issues. Now NNPC has bought 20% of the Dangote refinery. Do the same in Cameroon. Allow us to build private refinery. Today, the technologies that involve, refinery doesn't involve having 20 hectares of land like in Sonara. That was 40 years ago. Today, you can have a refinery the size of this room and refine your products. Let the government, the government must liberalize the refining sector. So that is to do, we have to make ourselves attractive.
Okay, now, talking about attractivity, I would like to take you now as the chairman of the UK Cameroon Chamber of Commerce, and as someone who defends the UK business interest in Cameroon and beyond. We have seen a marked increase of UK influence in Francophone African countries. What accounts for that?
Yeah, because the UK is no longer a member of Brexit, and so they have to diversify their trade partnerships. Cameroon, Francophone Africa, it's a new area where they can develop. The UK knows India, and the UK knows Nigeria, the UK knows Kenya, but they don't know Francophone Africa.
Yeah.
So I think Francophone Africa is the next big growth area. So they come to Francophone Africa. In doing that, we have the West and Central Africa Francophone African Conference every October in London, and you've seen a significant, they've just opened an embassy in Chad and a high commission in Gabon recently. So UK is focusing on Francophone Africa. You have, you have a lot of opportunities there. The problem is Cameroon, Cameroonians, we don't take advantage of the UK. We have an economic partnership agreement signed in 2021. We can export everything, we export things to the UK. Today, Cameroon exports a lot of bananas, vegetables to the UK. But I see a lot of opportunities to export tea, even cocoa, our chocolate. To the UK, maybe paper, the Penja paper, to the UK. There's a lot of opportunities around exporting with the new. There's no tariffs, no duties, no tariffs, free access, free and unrestricted access to the UK market. Let us take advantage. The UK also, we have the UK Export Finance. Many people know about it now. They're trying to know about it. That is what has financed the east entrance into the Douala, into Douala through the Bamba, to the tune of $200 million. We have the British International Investment. They were here recently on a delegation. They want to finance things. They are the guys who have an interest in Dibamba, in Kribi power plants. They're looking in Nashtigal. They're looking to do more. So you have all these facilities, but you see the problem with Cameroon is Cameroon considers itself as a French country. Yes, so everything that is UK doesn't, doesn't involve. But what I can tell you, and what I can say, is that we've been doing the same politics for 50 years. Don't you think it's time to change? To open up to the Anglo-Saxon world and have more money to develop their country? It's up to the government to think.
All right, now, within all these juicy programs and trade sectors which you have named, what is the chamber here in Cameroon doing to facilitate the smooth trade exchanges between Cameroon and UK businessmen?
The UK Cameroon Chamber of Commerce, you have Senegal UK Chamber of Commerce, you have Cote d'Ivoire UK Chamber of Commerce, you have Ghana, Ghana UK Chamber of Commerce. Cameroon just comes into the queue, and actually we were late into the queue. We are just the trade arm or the trade support arm of the UK High Commission, Cameroon. Support them, and to anybody who is interested in the UK, come to us. We'll help you. We'll support you. It's a conglomerate of UK companies that have a common interest, and that's what we are. Promote UK Cameroon trade and investment, and highlight what try to highlight the advantages that we see in Cameroon, increasing and promoting trade and investment links with the UK. As early as last week, there was a delegation of maybe 15 senior Cameroon business executives that visited the UK, and that's part of the program. So we just continue to try to promote, but at the end of the day, the government has to support us to diversify the Cameroon multilateral relationships from China, France, and the UK. But what I can tell you is that the UK is strong and the UK has money and they can support Cameroon. Why not take advantage?
All right. Now, the UK Cameroon Chamber of Commerce is on course towards a memorandum with the European Chamber of Commerce as well as the Cameroon Chamber of Commerce and Industries. How promising will these partnerships be when they come to fruition?
My view is that, together we are stronger. If you want to go, you want to go far, You want to go fast, you go alone.
You go alone.
You want to go far,
you
go
move with
with
people.
yeah. We have had successful interactions with the Euro Chamber and other chambers, the American chambers, to recommend and to appeal to the government on some of the measures that were taken in the recent finance law. So together, we think we can do better. Together, I think we can advocate in the interest of our members. So I think it is a good thing that we can try to negotiate and agree on an MOU with the European Chamber of Commerce and with the Cameroon Chamber of Commerce that has actually welcomed the UK High Commissioner recently in a big conference. So it's a question of together we can go far.
Okay, Doctor. The UK African Summit was set to hold in April this year, but that
postponed.
Very program has been postponed. What triggered the postponement?
I really don't know, but I just think it's a postponement. You know, it's just a question of calendar and schedules. I think the Prime Minister is just busy and it will happen. Okay. Africa is a priority for the UK. The West and Central Africa Trade and Investment Forum has not been moved, and so it tells you that the big Africa UK Jamboree will happen.
Now, does that mean that the envoy that was expected to come to Cameroon, yes, to talk about this summit and galvanize the activities around it, will Cameroon still expecting sometime in the future?
I don't know, but I spoke to the High Commissioner. The invitation stands. It's just as the President likes to say, c'est glissement de date. So I think the date has just been pushed. That we'll have a new date, and I think the invitations are still valid, and we'll have a great summit. I hope it's not in the winter or in the autumn, because I don't like the cold.
Okay. Now, last week, the Cameroon government signed a memorandum of understanding with the UK Standard Chartered Bank to fight against food insecurity. And the Standard Chartered Bank is coming with the funds to ensure that agriculture is boosted in the Adamawa region. How significant is that? That
is yet another example of UK companies, because it's to promote agriculture in the arid north, in the north region. I think the department, the Berry division, Mayu, one of the Mayu divisions and all that in the Adamawa region. It's just another example of available UK funds to support the Cameroon government to implement some of the key areas like agriculture, to support agriculture. Don't forget that it's for 15 hectares. There's another 20 hectares to go. So it's just another example of UK companies to implement it and the UK banks to fund it under the auspices of the UK export finance. So I encourage Cameroon government and Cameroon companies to look at this UK export finance that has a credit line of $1.5 billion or billion pounds for Cameroon. It's there. The guarantees are there. We just have to use it for the right and the requisite sectors.
Okay, Dr. Elias Pungong, senior expert in renewable energy, oil and gas, as well as mining, as well as chairman of the UK Cameroon Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much for talking to Dash News on Indepth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And to you, televiewers, it was a pleasure being with you on this edition of the program. Until next time, it's bye-bye.